So this is going to drive us to the point where there will be an eventually a loss of confidence in the dollar. I think what the really scary thing is right now, if you look at the markets, although the dollar's been slipping a little bit, in the last day or two, the dollar, bounces up and people are buying dollars and they buy our treasury bills and interest rates are near zero. And you figure, boy, that means we're really strong. And you know what it tells me? It gives you a hint on how bad the rest of the world is. If they're relying on us and our dollar and our financial system and the trusting our debt, you can imagine how bad it must be elsewhere. But eventually, since all the currencies are tied together and they're still tied to the dollar is the reserve currency, you cannot continue to do what we're doing and maintain confidence in the dollar. The confidence will be lost. And the day it comes, we don't know when it'll be, but it will be lost. And that is when prices will go up, interest rates will go up, the confidence in the dollars, the people who get the checks from the government, depending on the government, will get their checks, but they won't know what they buy. And then there's going to be a lot of people, including states, have already started on it. They just ignore the federal government. And there will be people who, for survival reasons, they're going to ignore a lot of what the federal government tries to do. And then something's going to have to happen. Now, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know when it's going to come. I believe it's correctable. We ought to be prepared. But I do know that what you do, whether it's the work at the John Birch Society or your own individual education, how you raise your kids, homeschooling, private schooling, the more people we have that understand how important it is to defend liberty, that is the most crucial thing that we have to deal with. There will be a lot of liquidation of wealth in this country yet to come. There has already been a lot of liquidation. The tragedy is the liquidation and the bad assets have been turned over to the taxpayers, and the people who are making billions on the bubble formation, got bailed out by us. But that eventually is going to change. But if we continue to lose our wealth and we continue to have our problem, there's one thing that we have to strive for, and one thing that we have to have if we think we're going to survive. We need an understanding about liberty. We need an understanding about our history. But we also need an understanding of how we can even improve on the concepts of liberty. But the key to it is defending individual liberty, defending the right of us to see and to own our lives, own our own lives. And that to me is both a moral and a political issue. I personally have the strong belief that our lives and our rights come from our Creator. They're God-given and God-protected, and yet and we become so dependent on our government as if the government can take care of us. We have a moral hazard of trusting the government and trusting the Fed and trusting government insurance. Everything is this assurance, and that will come to end. But if we can maintain a system or reinstitute a system with even greater liberty, no matter how much wealth we lose, I don't think it would take us long. I am so confident that a free people can produce and just think of, have you ever seen anybody unemployed in the underground economy? They do quite well because they don't pay taxes and they do all kinds of things. But just think if you legalized all economic transactions, you didn't have to deal with the federal government. We would be prosperous in no time. Just think for a minute, no income taxes, no forms. Oh, it might be tough on the accountants. My brother's a CPA. I have always argued with him. I said, I'd like to put you out of business. Put the CPAs out of business and the tax lawyers, and just get rid of all those laws. And if people knew they could keep what they earn, it wouldn't take us long. We would be back again. But it's the problem so often is people say, yeah, I like what you say. This sounds good. I'm for freedom. I'm for the Constitution. I'm for America. But, then they always have a but, that, oh yeah, but except when somebody needs help. Or except when we do this, and except for this. And they say, oh yes, but we can't allow imports to come into this country. That will challenge jobs. Then they go into, protectionism and why you have to bail out somebody too big to fail, and on it goes. We have to, deal on principles. And if you take a program like well, any welfare program, if you take food stamps, the justification for starting is some people are hungry and you have to take care of them, and if the government doesn't do it, they're going to be in the street starving, and that argument. So Republicans and typical and conservatives frequently say, we agree with that. I think a little bit of help is okay. So what we do is we concede and say there's 3% of the people right now needs help and they need food stamps. But when you concede a 3%, you concede 100% of the argument. And all you have to do is, the only argument then is going to be 4% or 5% or 6%. And now it's exploding. Food stamps, 40 million people are getting food stamps. And there's the unemployment benefits that comes out of a printing press, comes out of debt. But then the renewal comes up, and then they say, if you don't vote for that, that means you have no compassion, you hate people, you won't take care of them, you won't give them medical care, you won't give them education, and all this. We lose the moral high ground in our defense, and yet we should never. Because if we do care about people, which we all do, the only thing that can take care of the maximum number of people, give them the best standard of living, the best medical care, and the best education, is in a free society. The failure of socialism and welfareism and Keynesianism is so crystal clear that it just bothers me that we don't sell our message a little bit better. But so often we're put on the defensive. We're, okay, you're right. We got to care about people. We have to show we're compassionate. We have to be compassionate conservatives, and we have to take care of a few people. But I think that's where we lose our fight, and that it sounds too radical to believe in pure liberty. But if I thought for a minute that the society would be poorer with a purely libertarian type society, I think I'd still argue for the free society. But we don't even have to deal with that, because we know that there will be less poor. And we also know that the fact that the government doesn't take care of those 3%, the 3% that's always maybe in need, does it mean that they won't be taken care of? I mean, who took care of them for hundreds of years in this country? Who gave them medical care? I started medicine when we still didn't have the federal government involved, before Medicaid and Medicare. And I've worked in hospitals. Patients didn't get turned away. And there were people that got taken care of. But now, what do we have? Everybody going to get free care and rationing and limitations, and costs skyrocket. And the whole story about government medicine. And they have won that argument, and there's no reason they should. But I think we're starting to win it. I think we're starting to see the benefits of the education that's been going on, which included the education of the Birch Society, over these many years, where people are starting to understand that the principles of liberty work, and they're very American, and what we have gotten these last several decades has nothing to do with our Constitution, nothing to do with the American tradition of opportunity and responsibility. So we should be optimistic about it, but we can't be, complacent about it. Say, oh, okay, things are sounding pretty good, they'll work out. They're not going to work out automatically, because you know what's in Washington, you know what they're going to do. The worse it gets, the more power they get. We passed this, the medical care bill, and what did they stick in there? They stuck in there the taxes, 1099s for every $600 transaction, and that'll collect $19 billion. What did they stick in in the financial reform bill? We were making great public inroads into auditing and exposure and transparency of the Fed. The Fed ended up with more power than ever. The SEC planted something in the bill that said that they are no longer responsible for turning over any information under the Freedom of Information Act. So they take advantage of these things. So you know what is up there. But we also know that we live in a time that times are changing, and elections are important. Hopefully we get a little help in November, but that is just going to be token. What we have to do is change the hearts and minds of people and get the confidence back that we can take care of ourselves, and it is the best system. We've had the benefit of living in this wonderful, great system, and it's time we take our concentration off of all just the benefits and the redistribution of wealth now through government action, and believing in ourselves and believing in the American tradition. And on that score, I'm optimistic. I speak a lot to the college campuses, and I lay it on the line to young people. You know, I don't come promising free education or anything else. And the young people are responding. They're interested in the Federal Reserve. They're interested in personal liberty. And I'll tell you one thing. They're very interested in a foreign policy that doesn't obligate that young generation for decades to come in wars that aren't won and to be the perpetual policeman of the world. I get energized when I talk to the young college people, and I think we should be very optimistic of the change that are occurring, but we should continue our work and effort to defend this great country. Thank you very much.